then I'm settled, I guess. Buon pomeriggio a tutti. Those 3 words are my 3 words of fame in Italian. I used to be better at it, but it was 17 years ago, so I will go further in English. My name is Jille. I'm a software engineer at Ordina, and I currently have an awesome assignment at the Dutch Forensic Institute. And I live together with my other half and mentor Frank in Breda, the Netherlands, and also with our adventure cat Yada. If you're triggered by the term adventure cat, that is really something. And if you're interested, you can go to www.adventurecats.org to see more info and to see that we are not the only geeks here. She's named after one of my other heroes, Yoda. And Yada means also chosen one in Hebrew. And since he is a cat, everything came together by then. I also like to keep myself busy with the magic of tech, sports, health, people, and riding my motorbike. And to start this talk with, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Miyagi. But before I do so, I'd really like to know who thinks when I say Mr. Miyagi, Mr. Who? Please raise hands if you don't know who he is. All right, doesn't matter, a few, we'll come to this right now. I would like to take you to the time when I was about 8 years old. And I remember very well that at that age you could ask your parents to stay up a little longer if you didn't have to go to school the next day. So it was a weekend evening and I asked my parents, please, can I stay up tonight to watch the Karate Kid movie? And because I didn't have to go to school the next day, they said yes. And that's how I met Mr. Miyagi. I think I can't introduce you to Mr. Miyagi any better than the main character of the movie, and that's Daniel. He's also been called Daniel's son. You are about to meet the greatest guy. This guy, he's funny, he's smart. I mean, you got a problem, he's got the answer. He's like no one you'll ever meet. And on top of that, he just happens to be my best friend. Mr. Miyagi comes from Okinawa, Japan, and he has a deep philosophical knowledge of life and extraordinary karate skills. He's a genuinely caring, sweet, warm-hearted, and friendly person. He's wise, very, very wise. And he has an ingenious sense of humor, which I really liked in those movies. And with this package, he happens to be the mentor and the karate sensei of Daniel. And he made a worthy champion of him. As an 8-year-old, what I loved about Mr. Miyagi is that he made the effort to pass on something he was very good at. To a younger generation, selflessly and initially without knowing each other well. Simply based on the right chemistry they had with each other. I think I even wished Mr. Miyagi was my grandfather because I didn't really have a grandfather figure in my life. And also because from a very young age I wanted to become very good at what I do. Mr. Miyagi's martial arts caught my interest because I felt that if I could do that, I could always take care of myself. And he taught with morals in place. He was never aggressive and would only fight to defend himself, showing that he did not allow his abilities to corrupt his mind. He was teaching Daniel both life lessons and karate to protect himself. I was hooked from the moment I saw this movie. I even decided that I wanted to become my own Kelly-san. My own hero. So, now I'd like to take you with me to some of my own Mr. Miyagis, my own mentors. 2 years passed after my wish to become a Kelly-san, and then it happened. My own karate journey started with my own karate sensei. The karate school where I ended up at happened to be one of the 2 best in the Netherlands at the time. So it started also to look more and more like the Karate Kid in real life. My sensei was a fantastic teacher, completely devoted in what he taught us. He taught us and everyone else in our dojo what he knew and what he could. And with us in this context, I mean the tournament group where I was part of. He taught us all that you can achieve a lot with dedication, discipline, the right mindset, practice, and perseverance. That karate is a weapon, that you must always try to solve things with compassion first. The dojo was inside a primary school where we could train 2 days a week. But with the tournament group, we trained more often, which resulted in us often training outside. I can tell you there were intense times, but they were fantastic. And in the end, I can also say that it has borne fruit. In the first place, it made me more confident at school. Getting through secondary school unscathed felt like a challenge of its own. During this time of life, your personality is going through an important development, and it will be shaped by negative and positive experiences. I was neither one of the less nor one of the most popular students. And I remember well that one day I had to deal with, both literally and figuratively, the big bully of the class who would occasionally slap some of the boys. And I succeeded. I was confident enough when it was needed. In the second place, in my 6 years of karate, I've made it to the brown belt. I have won about 50 prizes. I've become national champion in several disciplines, and 3rd of Europe. So what, you might think? Well, the point is that mentoring has a very great impact here. Although meeting my sensei was more a twist of fate, he has been of a huge importance in my life. If you're still a little skeptical and think, well, nice example, but I don't quite see it happening at a professional level, stick with me then. Because in that case, my second Mr. Miyagi might inspire you. In the second year of my law studies, I wanted to work at a law firm as a part-time job. So I sent application letters and I was invited to have an interview with my other Mr. Miyagi, or rather, Mrs. Miyagi. I had a choice of several future mentors, and I chose her. We had a great conversation and it was just right. The chemistry was there. I was confident that she would be able to deal with my vulnerabilities and that she would be able to be a good mentor. Although we sometimes had our difficulties, because that can also happen in mentoring relationships, we always managed to work things out together. I really learned so incredibly much from her. I remember well when I just started, for example. So, on one of my first working days, she asked me to write an email to a client. And I had to answer a legal question. And I thought, how do you actually respond properly to your client? Because I had no idea. And believe me, that's so simple. Only someone has to tell you, especially if you imagine your client to be a super duper, very important person, and you want to be 100% sure that you answer the person as such on your first working days. I got my first legal document back all in red. And that was the color of the pen which it was corrected with. So then I thought, okay, The previous years of my studies were like getting your driver's license. You're not a big danger anymore. You know your theory, but that's all there is to it. You really learn the skill by observing and applying it in practice. Because of her, my learning curve was steep. I was able to become a good lawyer beneath her wings. I soon got my own cases in which she always remained my sounding board. And again, the mentoring relationship has paid off. The legal case that has stayed with me to this day is the one in which I assisted a woman who had had cancer. And she just recovered from it. She wanted to go back to work, but her employer was acting strange. She had an important position at a banking firm. It became clear that they wanted to get rid of her. It became a case based on the Dutch law regarding equal treatment. And an appeal to this law in this context was hardly ever won, at least at the time. Because it was difficult to prove that someone is being discriminated against based on illness. But I succeeded, and we won. Again, because I had the privilege of learning the craft of law from a good mentor. At that time, I had everything in place from a materialistic point of view. But from a certain moment, I went to work crying because the work didn't make me happy anymore. In 2014, I decided to quit the legal profession because I believed that you should do what makes you happy in life. And certainly also because I wanted to leave my job well done. Shortly afterwards, within 5 months, even more happened. My father died, my unhealthy relationship came to an end, and with that I also lost my house. So that was quite a rocky road. I felt completely lost. I no longer knew who, what, where, how, and why. Just when I made the decision to take my motorbike to the other side of the world, to find some rest and peace, another Mr. Miyagi crossed my path. And nowadays, he's my best friend. I never went to the other side of the world, but the good news is I still have my motorbike. After this mentor put his mentoring skills to use and soul searching from my side, I finally came close to myself. For the first time, I really knew the answer to the aforementioned questions. I had a throwback to the IT lessons, which I had at secondary school. Back then, we made a website with HTML, and that was a really big thing for me back then. Oh yeah, and also a currency calculator in Excel. So now you know the level, but I was really happy with it. I just couldn't stop and thought, oh my God, I can do magic, and I absolutely love it. I also remember that I wanted to become a hacker. So I made the decision to become a software engineer with a passion for security. But don't get me wrong, I still have a lot to learn. All these mentoring relationships I told you about have been of irreplaceable value to me. They have been life-changing. I've told you these stories for a reason. This talk is based on my experiences of mentoring since I was 10 years old. And by sharing my experiences as a mentee, I hope that I can make you feel how powerful mentoring it can be. And there's more. Yeah, there's more. So I got that tip from my mentor, and he told me, never ever forget to make that selfie on stage. So I need some help of you, and I'd like to make a selfie with you in the background. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3, sorridete! Thank you. So, back to the serious stuff then. What I was saying, there was more. When I took my first steps in my career switch to the IT world, I discovered that mentorship is not a matter of course. I was a tester before I became a software engineer. I was told to take that path because I had an IT background. I applied, clearly stated that I wanted to become a software engineer, and I was hired. I got training which consisted of doing some internal courses and getting the internal certificates that go with those courses. And I got my TMAP certificate, which is a well-known certificate for quality engineering. I landed in a fast-paced environment, and I certainly learned something, but much of the time I was also trying not to drown. At first, there was no time for real guidance. I asked a lot of questions, but got so many different answers and tips and new questions that it often came down to even a greater challenge not to drown. It was overwhelming. At a certain point, I was kind of paralyzed by analysis, and I decided that things had to change if I wanted to obtain my goal to become a software engineer. Shortly afterwards, I had a great job interview with one of the directors of Erdina at the time in a cafe restaurant in Breda. And that's how I became a software engineer. And not just that. I also found a mentor again. And that has really been a difference as day and night. For example, there are times where I get lost in reading. And when I finally finish reading the documentation, I think, and what have I just learned? Of course, I've learned something, but often I still don't have the answers to many questions that made me read the documentation in the first place. Instead, new questions have come up. There are also plenty of moments when I have to Google but pretty much every word in a sentence, concluding there's a lot of jargon. And then jargon in the definitions of jargon, which keep me Googling almost every word in a sentence again. Well, I try to find my way around, try to invent the wheel myself. I keep on missing something. And that something is context. And that's where mentorships comes in. Because guess who's giving me that context? My own Mr. Miyagi in the IT world. The over-enthusiastic tech lead who cannot stop talking when I ask him a question. And don't get me wrong, I love his over-enthusiasm. Because every time, over and over again, that's what's giving me that crucial context. It really brought home for me the importance of mentorship again. And then it clicked. I've been driven by the question why all my life. My mother always tells me that I used to ask this so often that it became annoying, just so you know. So when I found out that mentoring is not a matter of course, I thought, why? What a pity. And that's exactly the reason why I'm here and why I'm sharing my experiences here with you today. To add weight to it, I've made a link with research. I looked at whether my own experiences and ideas can be found in science, society, or both, so that they are research-backed. Now that I've shared some experiences, I would like to take a look at the following question with you. What exactly is mentorship? I run with this definition. Mentoring is a learning relationship involving the sharing of skills, knowledge, and expertise between a mentor and mentee through developmental conversations, experience sharing, and role modeling. The relationship may cover a wide variety of context and is an inclusive, two-way partnership for mutual learning that values differences. If you ask me, mentoring is also a skill and an art. that you learn by experiencing it, by doing it, by being it. Mentoring takes different forms, and they are all important if you ask me. But for the rest of my talk, I will focus specifically on apprenticeship. Almost all of my experiences, which I just have shared with you, involve this form of mentorship. Apprenticeship focuses on the development of the apprentice, the mentee, on the one side, and the master, the mentor, on the other side. And the master trains the mentee to become a master one day himself. Translated to the IT world, apprenticeship is the training of a new generation of developers through the combination of a general study program enforced with on-the-job training from a mentoring relationship. I'd like to bring up Robert Greene here. This is Robert Greene. He's the author of the books 48 Laws of Power and Mastery. In his book 48 Laws of Power, he states that the ultimate form of power is mastery. In his book's Mastery, he explains the importance of mentorship by explaining the biographical studies of great masters such as Darwin, Da Vinci, and Goethe, for example. Before they become masters, they were apprentices themselves. He says the following about the apprenticeship model. The greatest system ever invented for the training of skills and the achievement of tacit knowledge. In other words, of context. He also speaks about the apprenticeship phase, which he describes as follows. After your formal education, you enter the most critical phase in your life, a second practical education known as the apprenticeship. Every time you change careers or acquire new skills, you re-enter this phase of life. Looking at ourselves, don't we often say that we actually learn on the job? The word mentor comes from ancient Greece. According to Homer's Odyssey, mentor is Odysseus' counselor and friend. Looking at my own experiences and the outcomes of my research, I can actually conclude that a mentor generally helps the mentee by challenging and encouraging the mentee, by giving emotional and moral support, by being a sounding board, discussing goals and how to get there, giving advice, integrating the mentee into working processes, the work environment, the organization's culture and politics, let's say the how we do things here part, and helping to build a network. A mentor helps the mentee to walk the path he already walked, by sharing his mistakes, his woes, and wins. The mentor already overcame similar challenges and obstacles that the mentee may encounter on his path. It has given me the insight and the confidence in the things I do. Besides, I could grow safely beneath the wings of my mentor again. It helped me to have a steep learning curve. It is also worth pointing out that mentoring is a relationship of which a mentor also benefits. This is also reflected in the definition of mentoring I just gave. Through the dynamics of mentoring, the mentor is in turn challenged in his mastery. In being so, he develops his management skills, his leadership skills, and his interpersonal skills. Who is the mentor? Mentoring will only have a positive impact on the mentee, mentors, and organizations as a whole if it's done in a good and thoughtful way. In fact, at its worst, it can do enormous harm to a person. This lies in the nature of the mentoring relationship, because it's based on respect, openness, and trust. It reveals vulnerabilities. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, being a mentor comes with a duty. The duty to do what lies within one circle of influence to make it a positive experience. On the one hand, by focusing on someone's talents and strengths. On the other hand, by being open and honest about someone's improvement points. A good mentor is one who's really capable of giving constructive feedback, strict but fair. It must be someone you can discuss with freely and without fear. Someone who has the mentee's best interest at heart and who understands the path the mentee is walking. That being said, that also means that not anyone is suitable for the mentor role. A mentoring relationship can make or break a mentee, so now I'm going to unpack 10 best practices. The first one, a free choice. It might sound like common sense, but it's not. It is very important to let the mentor and mentee choose each other. You can't force a mentoring relationship. There needs to be good chemistry. And that tends to be a good starting point. Also, give the mentee the freedom to change mentors if something doesn't work out along the way or if other skills and knowledge are required at a certain point. Train the mentor. Considering mentoring's fragile nature, it is also really important to train the mentor. It should not be taken lightly. In any case, let the mentor walk his path as a mentor with a set of basic skills. Think of certain coaching skills like, for example, how to guide without judging and how to give feedback. Match. Make a match based on working and learning style. Let the mentor and mentee calibrate with each other. Let them discuss their do's and don'ts. Make sure the mentees and mentors' goals, interests, and needs are aligned so that they have a good time. Let them have lunch, for example. A trust-based relationship. The mentoring relationship is a trust-based one. So, what happens there must stay there. In order to let them build trust, give them enough time, space, and contact moments to build that trust. Because, again, you can't force it. An agenda. Set an agenda which may also consist of just having a walk together, or again, having that lunch together. It is also good to agree on intermediate goals and follow-ups together, because in that way you can really work towards something together. No copy and paste. So this is really, really important. The mentee is not a clone of the mentor. It is nice to hear how mentor experienced things, what it was like in his time, what his mistakes were, what the mentor wants to protect the mentee from, what he learned. I think you got me so far, right? But the mentee is definitely not a mini-me. Because a mentor shares a lot of himself, this is a major pitfall. The key here is empathy. Being able to feel and understand how somebody else experiences the world without judging. The mentor must therefore be able to step out of his own frame of reference. He should ask the mentee what the biggest barriers are to success right now, with what he can help. Ask how the mentee learns the best. Because everybody does it in a different way. The answers to these questions may not be the same as what the mentor has been used to all of his life. And he must be able to deal with that. Last but not least, Every senior and mentor should not forget how some things they learn now might be easier to learn because they can build on the knowledge they already have. They too started in an apprenticeship phase with their own challenges and struggles. Make mentoring also a part of the workflow. As an employer or client, offer a sufficient amount of time to offer a sufficient amount of time apart from on the job training and everything else that comes with it in a more organically way. And what I mean with this is that you should, for example, offer the mentor and the mentee an hour a week to discuss things with each other. Get some seniors and tech leads who have the core skills and knowledge about the technologies you want, as well as the ability to be good mentors. Put your money where your mouth is by truly providing those growth and development opportunities. You will get very good new employees in return. Provide also a mentoring program. Take different groups in account, like students, graduates, and lateral entrants like me. It is different from an onboarding or a young professional program with basic training. It's complementary to that and a multiplier to its success. Create a moment of evaluation by asking for feedback. Plan a moment of reflection for yourself. After all, improvements are really discovered on the way. Let it become a matter of continuous improvement and fine-tuning. The mentor is not responsible for the mentee's performance. It's up to the mentee what he does and what he does not. The mentor only supports the mentee. Appreciate the mistakes and celebrate the successes. And please, do not only say it, but live it. Give the mentee enough chances to grow just by making those mistakes. The greatest growth takes place outside of the comfort zone, and that's also the zone where the most mistakes are being made. So make sure that there's really a culture in which mistakes can be made. The thing that gets me even more than the missed opportunity that mentoring is not yet normalized in our community is what I'm going to tell you now. As a community, we have a big problem. But before I dive into it, I would like to ask you the first questions to yourself first. Did I have to deal with delayed releases? Missed revenues? Increased project costs? An excessive workload or higher stress level? An increase in project duration or operational costs? Reduced quality of the software developed? A limited ability to meet the objectives of the business? If your answer to one or more questions is yes, then I have bad news. If your answer to every question was no, then I have the same bad news. Because this is what our future looks like if we keep doing what we are doing now. According to CompTIA's data, the required level of expertise in job requirements for software developers is mainly between 3 and 10 years of experience. The demand of juniors lags behind, even though they are the meteors and the seniors of the future. According to Skillsoft's data, 75% of the IT decision makers reports a skills shortage in the IT workforce. This is an increase of 145% since 2016. Here are some other numbers to put this into a little more perspective. It is expected that in 2022, the financial impact of the IT skills shortage will result in a loss of $775 billion worldwide. This is due to delayed releases, missed revenues, or increased costs. In 2019, so 3 years ago, this was $302 billion worldwide. So right now, there are simply not enough qualified candidates. It's probably a dead giveaway, but I'll say it anyway. If we keep doing what we are doing, and we do nothing, then nothing changes, except for these outrageous numbers. As a developer, you notice this, for example, by an excessive workload and higher stress levels. Other signs are increased project costs, increased project duration, reduced quality of software developed, and a limited ability to meet the business objectives. Mentoring is the solution for our community's problem. Mentoring turns out to be a good talent management strategy. It ensures learning and growth within the company culture. This is because employees play an active role in knowledge sharing and sharing best practices. By doing so, a company also shows that it values investing in development and that it values its workforce. Mentees have better career outcomes than mentees without a mentor. Besides, they feel more engaged and satisfied doing their work. This in turn leads to higher employee retention. The performance of mentees are also higher and better than the performance of employees who are not mentees. Mentors also experience greater satisfaction and happiness in their work. It also provides a setting in which more new things are shared and created. If mentoring becomes an integral part of the organization, it can be carried out in a more cost-efficient way. I strongly believe that we can create the seniors and the meteors of the improved future. We can do this by matching today's juniors and students with a mentor. And beyond that, the system has survived for so long for a reason. Other professions have applied mentoring successfully many years. Sometimes it's even mandatory, like in the legal profession where I come from. The mentee doesn't have to reinvent the wheel himself. He gets the tacit knowledge, the context that he cannot get in any other way. It picks up where theory leaves. And the mentee can build up his own wealth of knowledge this way and build up skills and experience in an irreplaceable way. That means a steeper learning curve, a faster path to success, and delivering substantial value to the employer and to the client. I end where I began, with karate. For me, mentoring is like a kata. In ancient times, the kata was developed by masters or practitioners of Chinese Kung Fu as a way of archiving their knowledge and passing it on to future generations. Existing forms of knowledge sharing were not suitable for this purpose. Mentoring is just like that, a specific a necessary form of knowledge transfer. It's also crucial to mitigate IT staff shortages. If you search for experiences on the internet for mentoring, you'll find an overwhelming amount of positive experiences. I want to leave on the note that it's hard to change in a day. But don't forget the bad news here. If we do nothing, then we are screwed. That's why I'd like to challenge you to think how you can integrate mentorship into your daily work. I'm sure some of you are in the position to bring this into practice. I would appreciate it if you did, so that you take care for yourself and for our future generations. Just one passionate person can make a great difference. So imagine what we can do as a community. Having your own Mr. Miyagi shouldn't be luck, but a given. Be Mr. Miyagi or find one. Thank you. So you can reach me for the questions you have by contact me through Twitter or LinkedIn, or just asking me those questions when I'm walking around the venue. So please stop by and ask me whatever you want to ask. I'm happy to help. Thank you again.